Hey Max, welcome back. So we're at the halfway point with episode 6 of When the Phone Rings, and oh my god, what a great episode. We need to go ahead and dig into this one immediately because I have a lot to talk about according to this outline. But before we do, remember that there's going to be spoilers here, so watch on if you've seen episode 6 or if you still just don't care. So starting off, we see someone plunge into a body of water. Upon surfacing, we see it's a young Paksun, but as soon as he catches his breath, someone puts their hand on their head to push him back down, and does it again and again. It's a man in a little yellow boat wearing a suit that has a big dragon ring on his finger. And so I'm assuming that this is the chairman. And I'm not sure if this dream that older Paksun is currently having, because this is his dream right now, if this is something that had actually happened or if this is just a figurative dream. I don't know. But in this sequence, the older man pushes the boy version of Paksun down so that he drowns. But when our boy wakes up, he is still on the floor with this massive hangover. His left arm is asleep and he squeezes it to get the blood flowing in it. The reason why that might be because his wife is still sleeping soundly beside him on that hard floor, because they are on marble floor, and I'm sure that was a very uncomfortable night's sleep. And he almost can't believe that she's there. Probably the first time they've ever slept together. And she's snuggling up against him, looking so cute and adorable. So he's straining a little bit to get up so he can stare at her, but it was just enough to stir her awake. They exchange looks and they raise up to a sitting position, both in shock. After this, he goes and takes a shower and he's cleansing his face with water, and he's trying to reason on what just happened because he can't remember anything. He does recall, though, going through a haze of what has happened. He recalls her getting him out of the car, them falling on the floor, and then he can't remember anything after that. When he tries to go back to look for his phone in his room, there's this voiceover from Park Do-jae, which questions about what he asked him the night before, about if Paksun can guess who the caller has been, is it someone close to him, and he checks his phone and the battery has been drained. So he hasn't seen the text that we already saw in episode 5 about Park Do-jae confirming that the voice messages are a match. So he's waiting for his phone to charge enough to where he can get back into it when Hong Hee-joo knocks on his door to hand him an ad replacement. Oh, I'm sorry, a drink. She hands him a drink, which I am assuming is to help him with his hangover, but come on, ad replacement. So she's made breakfast and she has this kind of look about her of almost waiting for him to see what he's going to say, especially about last night. And he does, asking why were they lying on the floor last night. She hesitates to answer, and he's like, what? What is it? And she shakes her head, not willing to divulge. And I'm not sure if it's her makeup, but it looks like she might be blushing slightly, but maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into that. So he iterates, what? Tell me if something happened. She then gets her phone and says, should I tell you everything honestly? That piques his interest. She goes back to typing on her phone but keeps looking at him as if unsure on what she should tell him. Home Dude is ripping apart his bread and is apparently getting to him for not remembering anything, but she doesn't get the chance to. His phone rings with Park Do-jae on the line. Park Do-jae, being that ride or die person that I love, wanted to make sure Paksun was good since his phone was off, and it got Park Do-jae worried that something happened to him. Paksun apologizes but asks about the favor he had asked for yesterday. Park Do-jae tells him that he already sent it over last night. Now he knows the truth of who the caller is. He sags onto the bed, his knees giving out. The text shows up on the screen, confirming that it's a 99.99% match, like we found out the episode before. So at the office, Park Do-jae has a graph of a timeline of all the calls and incidents regarding the kidnapper, but it appears that the caller isn't involved in the kidnapping, explosions, and the incident with Hong Hee-joo's dad, that there's someone else involved. This was a conclusion that Paksun also has come to, that they're not accomplices, at least for her not to do him harm, especially since she had just saved him a couple nights ago. So if she really wanted him to be harmed, she would have let the truck hit him. So I'm glad that he already figured that out for himself. Park Jae is like, you know who 406 is, don't you? And Park Sun apologizes, but he says that he can't tell him right now. Park Sun is determined to break the link between the kidnapper and 406, but all this is affecting him so much to the point that he stops talking with either a headache or just overcome with emotions. But Park Jae asks if he was okay and that he doesn't look well. But Park Sun brushes it off with a "I'm fine" before reverse Unoing with a "No, I'm not fine." Park Sun reveals that he thought he had control over situations perfectly, that he was able to make better judgments than anyone, live meticulously to not fall into any traps. But why didn't he know? And of course, with hindsight, there were so many signs that he missed and probably chose to ignore them. He didn't want them to be true and wishing against hope that it wasn't. And he admonishes himself for not being on better guard, or else he would have had a better idea on what to do now. And I think also with that, it comes with a little bit of humbleness, because she was one trap he didn't anticipate, because he thought and had bragged, like I said, about knowing her pretty much almost inside and out, and that his wife would never do such a thing or would never be that kind of person. And she's technically not, but he didn't realize that she would take this step far. But I'm like, you have to put it together, dude, on the reason why she did. So he looks back at the graph and studies each timed event that Park Jae has pinpointed. And Park Jae right now has already left the room. With Hong Ju's voice in his head, he mentally replays what she says on each date. The second call when she asked him to cough up the 2 billion won, and that he had the next day to decide. The fourth, accusing him of not marrying her for love, and if that's the case, he should just leave her. Then remembering the call she made from the hotel about why did he treat her as if she was invisible, and of course she was crying on the phone, and he hangs his head because that one cut him deep. Then we get to the third call when she sends him that little saucy thigh picture, and he imagines Hong Ju in lingerie in front of him at the conference table. She comes around it, recounting that as her husband, that he should have already known she has this. And the imaginary Hong Ju is way too much for Park Sun to handle, banging his hand on the table as he comes out of his reverie. In another scene, Hong Ju is outside the room preparing herself to go in. She walks into the conference room where Park Sun is furiously writing away at the 100 questions, 100 answers sheet. She gives him a sheet, but he immediately slams the folder/clipboard with his questions down before her and over the sheet of paper she was trying to give him. He says it grew longer the longer he started to write, because baby is already in a mode. As soon as she reaches to read it, he takes it back, saying how he forgot one. When he spins it back around, we see all of what he wrote. It says lies, anger, hatred, misunderstanding, and forgiveness. But what's the first one he actually wants to know? It's forgiveness. He's not snapping at her at this moment, but he's asking in a genuine kind of way. She shows him the sign on forgiveness. Then he asks, what about I forgive all your wrongdoings? The gut punch reaction I felt at him saying that, with both him and the audience knowing what he knows. She shows him how to do that phrase, and he repeats it back to her unknowing that he's trying to forgive her for all these phone calls. This was very brilliant in the indirect way. She just doesn't realize that. But after a while, he does get some of the movements wrong, and then he stops because he becomes frustrated. And he says, it's difficult, forgiveness. And a lot of that anger is probably directed towards her, but there's others, I'm sure, in his life that he just cannot forgive. He ends the class early and he leaves with the slamming of the door. Park Sun is going down the hallway when he drops a piece of paper out of his folder and he picks it up to review it. And it was the diagrams for the sign language that Hong Ju wanted to go over with him. And while Hong Ju wonders at his mood, she gets a text from Hong Ina. Already, I don't like her tone, but the pushy chick says, since you didn't answer me back, I'm going to text again. Let's meet today. I'm like, I will meet you when I'm good and ready. I don't have to respond to your text. I don't have to go and meet with you if I don't want to. So we cut to Park Sr. in his living room listening to the news that was being announced by Nayuri. that the pre-candidate registration for the 21st presidential election that will be held in March next year will begin next week. And briefly right here, there is a huge family portrait that we see. And it is very telling of the dynamics of this family. You have the chairman that is sitting in the chair, with Park Sun standing behind him to the left. And on the other side, you have his parents that is off to the right. And his mother is very close to his father, as if she wants no association with him. Like there's a visible gap. It's not her standing in the middle, in between. No, she's standing really close to her husband. And I'm like, it is very eerie, but it tells so much of just how isolated it seems that Park Sun is from his parents. And of course, all three of them are at the whim of the chairman. The chairman is pretty much the focal point, the pushing point of their lives up to this point. So Park Sr.'s assistant comes in, letting him know that he has something to report on what he was repeatedly told that he needed to check on, which is regarding Chairman Hung and Hangina. Then we see Park Sun's mother, however you want to see her as Park Sun's mother. I'm going to let that dangle there. She finds a picture in a book that she was seeing. And now she is sitting at her desk. She's drinking a glass of liquor while she's looking over this picture. Then her husband comes in with this news that he just found out, which is that Hangina is back in Korea. And his wife is like, so what? Park Senior is like, what do you mean? You should meet with her. Get to the bottom of why she caused this mess. She takes a drink because she honestly does not care, and I don't blame her. He asks her if she's drunk, and she's like, can't I be drunk on a day like this today? And with him, what's today? That affects her so much because it's a day that no one but her remembers. A day that shouldn't be remembered, according to what his father decided. And Park Senior was like, and so? Why? Must you pretend to care? Would that ease your guilt even a little? He says, don't make me laugh. 20 years ago today, both you and I knew how we truly felt. And she said, what? Him. A sense of freedom. Oh, goodness. That freedom, of course, always comes with a price. We get a flashback scene when we have Park Sun's mom coming into her little boy's room at the mansion where they're hiding him out at. And she sees that all his fishes are belly up in the fish tank and they're gutted. She's horrified at seeing this. And because of this, she locks him in the room with him banging against the door. And essentially, this was her shutting him out of their lives. At least what we're led to believe, because it also shows in this scene how she regretted treating her child like that. And the picture she found is of him and the cat he marked in front of the young Ji Sang-woo. The book that this picture was resting in, Is It Impossible to Change Innate Temperament? Apparently for him, yes, he's too far gone. So Hong Yi-ju goes to the aquarium where she finds Hangina there. Then we get flashbacks when the witch is trying to stroke her hair, saying like, you must be Hangina. And Hangina slaps her hand away, telling her not to touch her with her filthy hands. Honestly, this is a bravo moment for her. I can't stand the woman either. Hong Yi-ju approaches her sister. She recalls that when she was little after the accident, Hangina had bandages covering her ears while she was singing in a darkened room at the piano. Little Hong Yi-ju was bringing her a snack with some milk. She accidentally drops a glass, but Hangina doesn't stir, doesn't hear anything. And this is kind of a parallel to her approaching her now at the aquarium. And when she was just about to put her hand on her sister's shoulder, Hangina turns around and she asks how Hong Yi-ju has been. Yup, she can talk just fine. They walk through the aquarium. Hangina is up there saying how she remembered they used to visit the aquarium often when they were kids, and that it felt like all the sounds in the world disappeared when she stared at the water like this. And then she was like, let's go see the mermaid show. It starts soon. Because, that was something that Hong Yi-ju always liked. Then she continues on with like, isn't it amazing hearing me talk like this? I must have been so lucky. She apparently had surgery now, and that she couldn't have surgery when she was younger. They couldn't do it then. But she asked her sister, why is she still the same? She says, you can talk, You don't have to keep quiet. Hung-Gi still pulls out her phone and types it out and asking, "You knew?" She did. And she reveals that you didn't speak because of me. Hung-Gi walks furiously out of the place with Hung-Gi trailing behind her. And upon turning her around, Hung-Gi reveals that, "I know I did a terrible thing to you. I know it was awful of me, but I didn't want to suffer alone and wanted someone else to be miserable with me." That's so messed up. I get it, she was still a kid, but that is still so messed up. Hung-Gi tries to retreat, but Hung-Gi holds her fast. Hung-Gi lets her have it in sign language, but she lets her have it. "So now that you're good, I have permission to speak now?" No, that's not up to you. I get to decide on who I talk to, and it's not going to be you, and we already know who she wants to talk to and who she's already been talking to. She's like, "I won't let you interfere with my life anymore." When Hung-Gi just stares at her, Hung-Gi signs, "You don't know what I'm saying, do you? It doesn't matter. I'll say what I want just like you're doing." Then she turns and sees the signs for the Little Mermaid Mysterious Adventure Show. And we already know that her life has been very mysterious up to this point, for sure. And the adventure part is just now getting started. She tells Hung-Gi point blank that she doesn't like the Little Mermaid. She hates her. And then she leaves. Once she gets outside the aquarium, Hung-Gi is trying to call her, but Hung-Gi is not hearing it. She ends the call. Then she gets a text from Hung-Gi saying that what she wanted to tell Hung-Gi was about Poksun. While driving, we get a voiceover from Hung-Gi explaining to her sister what happened. That before the wedding, Hung-Gi didn't dump Poksun onto Hung-Gi, that he had asked directly for her. That was the compensation for letting Hung-Gi off the hook and him still obtaining that connection to the Hung family. So Hung-Gi is ticked off at hearing that, and she floors it to get home. Oh goodness, our babies have been finding out so many truths today. Him finding out that the caller is her, and her realizing that it wasn't really just her mother pushing her towards Poksun with the chance of securing their own foothold in society. No, he asked for her. He wanted her. He wanted to marry her. And so essentially, it was his machinations that put her in this predicament, that put her in this terrible marriage. So at the house, Poksun is going through her room to find anything incriminating, especially that phone. He looks through her closet. He sees the closet of her handbags and sees the one that she had at the anniversary party that he remembers her putting that phone in. He checks it, it's clean. Hung-Gi gets home and immediately notices that there is a light on in her room. And she catches him red-handed snooping through her cabinets. His excuse? Again, he pulls his punches and says his phone is missing. And he kind of says it like in a small voice, like, "Well, I just can't find my phone." So she calls his phone, hears it, and points towards her door, practically an unspoken invitation for him to get out. But he does notice something, a bag, and he drags out some lacy underthings. He asks, "What's this?" She doesn't answer. He laughingly scoffs, amused that Hung-Gi was into this sort of thing. She tries to reach for it, but he lifts it out of her reach. She keeps trying until he falls onto the bed with her on top. They've been doing that a lot, haven't they? But I'm not hating it. They have a stare-off again, her thinking about those lips of his she kissed the night before. But you know what? So is he. And now he vaguely remembers what she was so reluctant to disclose that morning, that they had kissed. But he's trying to suss out from Hung-Gi if that moment had occurred. Well, at least he almost did. Our boy had a panic attack as he flung her off of him. Did he have purity beaten into his head or something? I don't even know. But he goes sprinting out of this room, and Hung-Gi goes to her secret spot, relief pouring from her at seeing the phone still there. If she was minutes later, he might have discovered it, but she realizes that she still had 30 minutes until 10 o'clock. So what will she do now that he was in the house? Luckily, she doesn't have to worry about that because she spooked him so bad that baby had to go outside for a run. He runs to an edge of a park where you have the overview of water, the skyline, and the bridge, and of course traffic. And at 10 o'clock, he gets his phone call. It's a whole different realm now. He knows who's on the other side of that call. Poxon picks up, asking how did the kidnapper know? She asks, know what? Him, that I've been thinking about you all day. And he most certainly has. He goes on to say that we've spoken on the phone every day, but there's still so many things I don't know about you, but I want to know more. The double meanings are so great here. Plus, this is a great compromise of him talking to her, but on her terms. And of course, Hong Yi-ju telling Hong Yi-na that she'll set the boundaries on who she talks to. And like I said, she wants to talk to him. Hong Yi-ju proposes they each ask a question and answer it. Poxon's like, fair, but from this moment on, we'll only speak the truth. She agrees that this is what she wants too. He prompts her to proceed first. She talks about the deal he made with Hong Yi-na before the wedding. Was the deal concerning Hong Yi-ju? He answers yes. Now it's his turn, even though she really wanted to ask a follow-up question. He's like, I already answered it, so your turn is over. You just need to think carefully the next time you ask. So again, my turn. Is Hong Yi-ju being threatened right now? Now, pausing this conversation, I love that she's his first concern. And this reminds me so much at the end of episode 2 when he's texting with Hong Yi-na. The first thing he responds back in regards to that conversation is regarding Hong Yi-ju marrying someone else. So I just love that in Compulsion, his first thought is always her. Great parallels. So going back, Hong Yi-ju asks, why does he think so? He answers that, referring to 406, the kidnapper, that you kidnapped her and even went after her father and you're crazy. And that his wife would never side with someone like him. And that's true because the woman he knows and loves would never do such a thing. And she answers truthfully that she's being threatened, but also not. So now it's her turn. She asks, did he take Hong Yi-ju hostage in exchange for her sister to be let go of the arranged marriage? He doesn't answer that, but incriminates himself by asking, who told you that? And she surmises that since he asked that, all roads lead to it being true. And he admits that it is, which isn't something she wants to hear because you know that she wanted him to say that he wanted to be with her deep down. And eventually he'll get to that point, but this is him being like surface level here. So he reveals that he often has nightmares and that they occurred more when he was a kid. So little Poxon would get out of bed and he will walk all the way down to the Hong house where he would often see Hong Yi-ju. On this night or this flashback in particular, we have Hong Yi-ju who's signing in the mirror, and she was signing indirectly to him that I will help you. I will be with you. It's okay. And he mirrors and says it's okay while signing it. And like I said back in episode 4, she quiets his anxieties. And older Poxon says as much, that what calmed him every time were the gestures of the girl next door who practiced sign language every night. But that girl had no one to rely on anywhere, because to her, Chairman Hung's house was a prison, and he wanted to help her escape, hope that she could leave the house to live freely. And this is moving Hong Yi-ju to tears because she feels seen and acknowledged that this was what she experienced. But Poxon does say that he never thought he would become Hong Yi-ju's new prison. Prison? She asks. Poxon admits that married life with him must have felt like going from one prison to another. That has to be the reason why she got mixed up with someone who's beyond crazy just so she can divorce him. Then he says, it's my turn now. Does Hong Yi-ju still want a divorce? She doesn't answer, doesn't know how to. Poxon prompts, isn't that what you keep saying? To let Hong Yi-ju go, return things to the way they were? To let her go? And even in his voice and the way he looks down, you can tell it'll devastate him to do it, but he will if that's what she wants. She says she doesn't want to get her hopes up anymore, that someday things will change, that it'll get better. That's the mantra she's tried for 3 years. And if you let her go, she thought she wouldn't get hurt or be disappointed anymore. Then he asked, by any chance, does she want sincerity, attention, understanding, and affection? And this is from the sheet he picked up in the hallway after he left her after their learning session. Those were the signs she wanted to go over with him that day. Then he prompts, is this what she wants? Hong-Ju asks, what are you saying? He says, what I'm getting at is that I can give that to her. Now she looks up and imagines him being in the room with her, still on the phone as he continues. I can give her everything. And he looks at her. And he says, if that's what Hee-ju wants, I'll give her as much as she needs. And she's wondering, why do you suddenly want to do that? You didn't care whether I lived or not, or if I was by your side. And she does say I instead of her. So it's a Freudian slip here. He says, from the very start, this wasn't the marriage Hee-ju wanted. I kept her by my side as a hostage, thinking that someday I'd have to let her go. Hong-Ju asks, is that why you were so cruel? So you wouldn't get attached? He doesn't answer that, but he says, if that's what Hee-ju wants, it changes things. So promise me, if I make an effort and we can change, promise you'll never make this call again. She tells him, it depends on how you act, before slamming the phone closed. Okay, now we got the reason why he was such a butt to her all this time. So here's my thoughts regarding this scene. His reasons are stupid. At least they're still not enough for me, because he missed out on 3 years of being happy with her. It's been long evident that he's had feelings for her for years, probably inklings of it before he even realized what they were because of their connection with each other. But I thought someone had threatened him regarding having feelings for her, like his parents, his grandfather, something. Especially since they viewed her as a temporary bride anyway, until they can get Hong-Ina to assume her place as his rightful wife. But him just resigning himself to her eventually leaving him was such weak sauce for me. His home life growing up was far from being warm, and that she was the only warmth and solace he had, however little of it he did get. And that this apparently is still the case now that they've become adults and of course married to each other. But as sweet as it is at her being his comfort, especially since he was little, it still comes off as being self-serving, especially with them being married now. That the reason why he wanted to get married to her in the first place was to pretty much make him feel halfway human. And that really he can't condemn her family for using her as a tool for Hong-Ina when he technically did the exact same thing of her being like this comfort person for him anytime he was in the house. There wasn't an equal trade. I'm glad that he acknowledges and recognized his shortcomings. That while he thought he was helping her by allowing her to be safe being married to him, he realizes that he was not much better. I just wish he had started off small, not coming at her like he did at the wedding, just threaten her to be in line, but to ask general things. Then I'm sure she would have been able to confide in him about the whole talking incident and everything else if they had built up their rapport early, and that their relationship would have been stronger for it. But if they had done that, of course, half the plot of this drama would have been gone, and so this is where we're at. But yeah, I really wish there were stronger reasons on why he was so cold. No excuses, but I just wanted far better than what we got. So in the scene, the witch comes out of the country club flaunting this outfit she got on. Park Sr. is hitting her up with compliments on how young and beautiful she looks. And Park Sun's mother, who is still on the phone, just looks like she would rather drive all over them with the golf cart. The witch says that even though her age may increase, the length of her skirt shouldn't. Okay. Park Sr. goes his wife into possibly dressing younger, and she's like, why should I struggle to look younger? Got her. Chairman Hung agrees with her, and that it's not necessary for her since she already has a gorgeous charm about her. See, he's getting his look back and flirting a little bit. So with one poignant look from the witch and forced presidential laughter from Park Sr., they're off golfing. So while out there, Chairman Hung asks how much Park Sun was asking for. Now, brief pause here. Do y'all notice the obsession this man has with Park Sun? It seems like anytime any of his children, quote unquote, exits his mouth, it's not about his daughters, it's about his son-in-law. I'm like, can you please separate yourself from that? I think with Park Sun's connection to his family, that means that will increase his credentials. He can have bragging rights that, well, my son-in-law is about to do this and this and this. It's more clout chasing for him and bragging rights. So he tells Park Sr. to have good luck with negotiations, and that between parents and children, there should always be some playful give and take. Park Sr. is like, I don't know, but don't you know as well as I do that getting a stubborn child to listen is harder than practicing discipline. Oh, and speaking of stubborn children, your eldest daughter, how is she? Chairman Hung wonders at her being brought up all of a sudden. Park Sr. was like, just had her on my mind. I'm sure for the campaign, and probably also still gauging if Chairman Hung would disclose if he knew that she was back in town, because, Park Sr. already knows the answer. So it's company retreat time. The crew is walking up and mostly everyone is already there, and they're wheeling or toting their luggage. They come across this van that has lunches for the spokesperson's team, and the team isn't aware that lunch was coming or being served. And apparently in these lunch boxes, a lot of the food is shaped into hearts and heart toothpicks and everything. Kang Young-woo admits that he wasn't the one who ordered this. And when they ask the delivery driver, he confirms he doesn't know either. Park Sun and Park Do-jae arrives, and he wonders if everyone has arrived, and he's very happy that the lunch boxes came too. Kang Young-woo asks if it was Park Sun who ordered it, and he seems reluctant to admit it, and even looking at his wife, but he still doesn't say anything, only saying, let's go. So it seems that when he said he was going to give her all the affection and romance she wanted, the man didn't hesitate to turn around and, oh my lord, was coming up. So they get on the bus, and Hung Hee-joo finds a seat. The new guy who started with her, Jeong Won-bin, asks if the seat next to her was taken, which she tells him no. He offers her a drink, which she accepts. Then we hear footsteps, and she looks up as soon as she takes the can, and we already know who it is before we get to see him. And Park Sun is staring at her, insisting that he gets car sick. Then his gaze shifts to Jeong Won-bin. Doesn't it get worse when you sit in the back? Jeong Won-bin is like, that's right, but there's a seat up here right in front of me. Why don't you sit here? Plop. Because his bag is occupying that seat now. Jeong Won-bin gets the hint. Would you like to sit here? So he gets up, and Park Sun essentially maneuvers the man out of the way so he can sit by his wife. He does thank him though, as Jeong Won-bin sits in the empty seat behind them. Park Sun is being straight up ridiculous right now. Even Hung Hee-joo looks at him sideways. Then this fool snags the can that she got and throws it over his head to land in the seat behind him. He says that coffee isn't good on an empty stomach, Miss Hung, and proceeds to give her fruit juice with a heart on it. I can't. Come get him. Please. Please just come get him. So, our second couple is shopping, gathering snacks at a grocery store. Nayuri is on the phone, I think with their producer, asking for information on how to find proof and how to find a witness, and that these kids don't have a family. The caller, Mr. Han, hangs up on her. Ji Sang-woo jokes with her that if the Neo YouTuber story is fake, will she take responsibility, like quoting that's what Mr. Han had said or assumed. Now Yuri is like, why should I? You should, because I'm like, this is your story, we're following your lead. I'm going all in on you, so you need to take responsibility if things doesn't pan out. But Ji Sang-woo asks her why is she so enthusiastic to help. But before she can answer him, she gasps, realizing how much is in the shopping cart. She asks him, why are you buying so much? Him? It's not that much. At least for hungry little ones whose stomachs can never be filled. Because he has first-hand knowledge about that. All these snacks are going to the Nuri Dream Center. The kids are waiting in line getting an autograph from Nayuri. This one little girl asks if she was Dr. Sang-woo's girlfriend, which surprises Nayuri. She clears it up with, no, I'm not his girlfriend. Not right now, you're not, but I'm predicting that you will be. So the little girl sits next to her where she has this thick photo album, and they are flipping through pictures of Ji Sang-woo helping out making kimchi, being fed by one of the kids, which delights the group of kids and Nayuri. Ji Sang-woo calls the kids to eat. When a few were still lagging behind around Nayuri and the photo album, Ji Sang-woo snatches it away and a photo falls out of it. He picks it up and looks at it, his face becoming serious, which we see is a picture of a group of children. They go to the director, who is a nun, and Ji Sang-woo tells the director that he had heard about these kids disappearing about this time when the picture was taken. And Nayuri adds that this was right before the director had gotten there, but does she know anything? And the sister says that she doesn't. Nayuri asks if any of the birth parents came later on looking for their children. No, they didn't. So the missing kids had no family to search for them, therefore there's no one to remember them. There's so much about remembrance this episode, just noticed that too. But the thing about this, Ji Sang-woo remembers there's always that one person that wants to remember. And he points to each kid about what their personalities were. And these 3 are boys. The director says, that's strange. The thing that she did hear was that there were 4 kids that went missing. And so Ji Sang-woo is like, there's one more. The director finds the boy in the picture and shows them that this boy is actually a twin. And with this missing boy, especially since they do not name him, and Ji Sang-woo does not remember much about this boy, could it possibly be our Park-sun? Maybe? It might be also someone else we have met, but I don't know. So the next scene transitions to our kidnapper, and it makes me wonder also because there has to be a reason why this is the next scene following the one we just watched. Regardless though, it seems like the mystery of the missing children, the kidnapper, and our current Park-sun are all tied together. But the kidnapper is prepping fish because, it's his favorite. He gets a message from the puppet master, and the message says that there's a change of plans. Today's D-Day. Uh-oh. Not good for our babies who are still blissfully unaware as they're on the bus for their company retreat. So some of our crew from the team, they're either snapping pictures, talking, or sleeping. Park-sun is working while Hong Yi-ju is sleeping soundly beside him. Her head falls onto his shoulder, which he's immediately alerted to. It is so strange seeing someone in control of his emotions and how he conducts himself in everyday life is so brand new when it comes to romance. He tries to put the shade down a couple of times, but he almost wakes her up. Instead, he shades her eyes with his hand. Very romantic gesture. And the way he looks down at her, you can tell just gives him such pleasure. Protecting her, shielding her is his love language. He might have dropped the ball emotionally for her, but I have to say that outside his cocky feelings that no one knew who his wife was in episode 1, her being safe is his number 1 priority. But seriously, Kang Young-woo has the worst phone alert for his wife that I have ever heard. Change that, sir. You just change it. But it causes Park-sun to put his hand down and he jostles his shoulder to get Hong Yi-ju off of it, but she is still asleep. Kang Young-woo apologizes to his wife for not being able to go with her somewhere, we don't know where. But he does dance a bit in his seat and he sings that he loves her with a finger heart and that she's his ultimate love in the universe and that he loves her so much. Park-sun is just staring at him. Kang Young-woo apologizes, but he asks Kang Young-woo how does he do that? Kang Young-woo, pardon? What you just did. And Park-sun repeats, with the finger heart repeating, I love you, ultimate love in the universe. No, sir, bad. Don't you dare. I swear, if you say this to her, I will never forgive you. Never. Kang Young-woo says that it's hard to do this at first, but it gets easier to do the more you do it. Think of it as adding a little flavor to the affection you usually show, which is generally 0, but okay. But Kang Young-woo does pick up on that. He's like, wait, you do show your wife affection, right? No, he doesn't. And good thing he does look ashamed for it. Kang Young-woo says, what? You've been married for about what? 3 years, Park-sun chimes in. Kang Young-woo is like, so you're practically newlyweds. So why haven't you? Park-sun doesn't answer, because I'm like, what can you say? Kang Young-woo was like, time flies quickly, so what's the use of saving it? Tell her you love her, and thank her as much as you can. Then he proceeds to look at a picture on screen of him and his wife, him feeding her ice cream and them twinning in outfits. They are so cute though, I will give him that. Him and his wife are adorable. Then Park-sun turns to look at Hong Yi-ju, who is still asleep. I do have to say that, good lord is this man green when it comes to romance. Of course, like this is in life in general, that not everyone's love language is the same. Hong-Ju seems to be a very understated person. She doesn't need a big showcase or grandiose gestures regarding love. The subtle comfort of her being able to sleep beside him on the floor, on his shoulder on the bus, you being with her with love and compassion, that is all she wants. You've been her cup of tea, even at your grumpiest, and that she has made allowances for you up until this point, which goes to show that even with you being a grumpy butt, she still has feelings for you regardless of that. So they arrive at their destination where they're doing their team building. Kang Young-woo is the MC, thanking Park Sun for the box lunches, and now they're going to do a sports competition, which the ladies were not a fan of, which I get it. So eventually, Kang Young-woo wanted everyone to be teamed up into pairs, and he wanted to split the teams between the interpreters versus the spokespersons. Jeong Won-bin had asked Hong-Ju if she wanted to team up with him, but guess who interjects? You got it, Park Sun does. He says that they've come to build rapport with the interpreters. What's the point of the retreat if you arrange the teams like that? Everyone agrees because it's a valid point. And Kang Young-woo's like, well, let's go ahead and mix it up. Mr. Park, why don't you just go ahead and pick which of the interpreters first, and off he goes. And of course, Park Sun goes immediately over to claim his wife. To pick Hong-Ju to be on his team. Okay, dude, you are married. To her, yes, but they don't know that. I get you're trying to romance her, but this ain't it. But it's almost like he's playing a game of Red Rover where he comes in between the two of them. Jeong Won-bin, he moves immediately out the way after Park Sun gives him a pointed look. And then Park Sun officially asks to team up with her. Then he asks Kang Young-woo what the prize will be. And the man doesn't even get to finish before Park Sun interrupts by insisting that the winning team gets to pick the prize. Kang Young-woo agrees because it's his boss. He can't tell him no. So Park Sun is all ready to go, going down to do some stretches because he got wifey to impress. First challenge, 2-person jump rope. Since there's a lot of room for error, each team will get 2 chances. So the first team goes first and they do well. In the meanwhile, Park Sun pep talks his wife, saying how he'll go in first, make sure to time it right and jump. Speed, reflexes, timing, and focus are all important. So as the first team makes it to 7, next is our couple. It takes quite a few rotations for Park Sun to get in, and I mean several. His feet are all jittery, and it's just so weird, and he messes up the rotation, and he gets 0 points. Kang Young-woo asks if he's okay. He's fine, if not his pride being a little bruised, but he was trying way too hard. Hong-Ju gives him that look of what the hell was that when he comes back to her side. Then Park Sun was like, okay, part 2. I got it all figured out. I can do a good job this time. Once I find the rhythm after a few jumps, then you can... Wait, are you listening? Yeah, she is, but she types on her phone. I'll go first, just follow me. Atta girl, I knew she'd be the one to take over. So the next team after them got 12, so now they have to beat that. With it being their turn again, she jumps in easier than her husband did, which impresses him. And she turns to look at him, giving him the okay to come and jump in. And then when he starts hesitating, not able to get the rhythm, she starts clapping on when it's okay for him to jump in. And he finally does. And her smile is so cute and radiant as he makes it. Our couple looks like they're enjoying themselves, and Park Sun keeping up with his wife as they jump in tandem. I just love it. It's such great symbolism of them slowly getting on the right track, on the right foot, especially with their relationship. It's so wonderful to see that. So the scene cuts back to our second couple driving back from the orphanage. They have the group picture and Nayuri commenting that they finally found one, the victim's family. Ji Sang-woo says if the twin brother was still alive and the other twin was looking for him, then he may know something. Nayuri is like, yes, but it won't be easy to figure out where he is or how he's living now. The director said that the old documents were either lost or discarded when the operating foundation changed. Ji Sang-woo says that he'll go ahead and ask the kids from the orphanage, or the kids I believe he grew up with, to see how many of them he can contact. Nayuri is like, that would be a great idea. And again, I love them working together, and they're making such a great team. It kind of reminds me, and I didn't watch the show growing up, but it kind of reminds me of that old school show Heart to Heart with that couple that went around solving crimes. Like, maybe this is them tackling this in the cold case world. That would be cool if they can do this, like, post series. Like, that would be where they end up. So back to the company retreat. It's now the 3-legged race, and it's in the finals. It's Our Babies versus Jungwon Bin and An Jin Hee. Parksun puts his arm around her, and she has her hand on his back, and they're at the ready. And then they're off. And they get around the cone, and when the other team stumbles on the way back, they manage to pull through to the finish line. As soon as the buckle tying their legs together is off, Parksun lifts her in his arms to twirl her around. So unexpected and so much. Way too, just stop. Everyone is looking at him, but he apologizes for getting carried away. Man, you need to apologize to me because the secondhand embarrassment has been too much for me to handle. And I'm sure a lot of you others can agree. But Kang Young-woo congratulates them in winning. What prize should be prepared for the winning team? Parksun says, "There's something I want." What about your wife? Did you ask her what she wants? I'm sure she'll be like, whatever you decide is fine, but what our boy wants is a picture to be taken of them. Probably for him to have on his office or even on his phone, kind of like what Kang Young-woo has of his. But as he's trying to take a picture of them, they're looking around awkwardly, staying a feet apart, and it just looks weird. Even Kang Young-woo is like, "But did y'all get into a fight already? Can y'all please move closer? Like, act as if you like each other." He doesn't say that, but I do. He does ask if one photo is really enough. Is this really what you want your first prize to be? But essentially Parksun says, this souvenir photo will be enough. So Kang Young-woo has them smile bigger. Then he has them tilt their heads towards each other. Like, are you secretly shipping them, or do you already know that this is his wife? Did Parksun disclose that actually this is my wife, or has he figured it out? I don't know. It'll be interesting if he does know. So after this, the crew goes hiking. Kang Young-woo asks to stop along the way. Park Yoo-jae kind of quips that you're kind of dressed for the Himalayas and kind of walks past the group. One of the ladies is like, yeah, why did you want to hike up this mountain anyway? Kang Young-woo is like, did I suggest it? No, it was the flying man up there, meaning Parksun, who is already far ahead, being trailed by Hong Hee-ju. Jungwon Bin revels in Hong Hee-ju's stamina. One of the ladies comments that it's not just her stamina. Don't they have good chemistry? I'm like, that's true for the couple both in this drama and outside of it, let's be honest. Jungwon Bin doubles down on that even in the 3-legged race they were in sync. But Kang Young-woo was so indignant, he's a married man, saying in a way that scared his colleague. But she's like, you said it before too, how the sparks flew the day of the interview. And he's like, when did I? But he brushes it off, and then he asks the team to help him out so they can keep soldiering up the path. Then we get a little bit of lonely time with our couple, who is still in sync with their climb. He looks back occasionally to check on her, but wifey is right behind him. When she gets tired and rests against a tree, he turns back and offers his hand, which she takes, and he lifts her a little too hard to where she collides into him. He asks if this was all the shirt she had. He proceeds to take off his jacket and ties it around her waist. He tells her it'll be cold once the sweat dries. Wear it later. And he continues on. Hong Hee-ju hears the others starting to catch up and continues to follow her husband. And so when they reach the top, he helps her up. And they are the first two in their group to reach the overlook. But they are not the only hikers up there. There's plenty of others who are up there too. And it is a gorgeous sight. And eventually the rest of the group does make it up there and are taking pictures and, posing. And then Kang Young-woo was just like, well, let's go ahead and take a group picture. And then suddenly there's a couple of people that realizes, oh, this is spokesperson Park. And of course, there are hikers up there that immediately identify Parksun as the spokesperson, and they are fangirling and buoying themselves and want to get a picture of him. So before even Kang Young-woo can stop them, they go rushing forward, charging over the banner in the group and trying to snap pictures of him, and pretty much like everybody's struggling around him. And so a lot of people are getting pushed back towards the edge of the overlook, including our Hong Hee-ju. And then we hear a scream. Barely, but you can pick up on it. And then one of the ladies starts screaming, looking over the edge, and Parksun parts the crowd, asking her what is it. She says, someone fell. Then someone says, it was Hung-Ju. And our boy is panicking. He goes to the edge and starts screaming her name to search for her over the side, but she is gone out of sight. So later, a search and rescue team is deploying drones to go look for her, and Kang Woo is explaining what happened with them trying to take a picture, and some of the hikers approached them and got excited when they saw Park Sun and started pushing and rushing forward. Then Park Do-jae kind of like steps forward to kind of conclude the interview, and he's like, the rescue team needs to be deployed, and that is almost 6 o'clock, and that will be dark soon. And then we see Park Sun though. He is climbing back up the cliffside, and his hands are bloodied. He had gone there before the rescue crew got there, and he gets scolded by Kang Woo about how can he go down there like that. And we already see that Park Sun is already worried out of his mind. And I thought for a second he was going to lose it, like start screaming along the lines of like, that's my wife down there and we need to find her. But no, despite the noticeable angstiness of him pacing back and forth and him panicking, he does keep his cool. And he discloses that what he saw was a broken tree or a tree branch, which means that she might have hit it on her way down. And he asks if they can deploy the rescue dogs right away. And the rescue lead says, sure, we can, but we don't have any of her belongings to try and track her. So Park Sun gives the lead his vest, saying that she has his jacket and the dog should be able to track his scent from that. Then Park Sun asks if Park Do-jae can get through signal-wise, but he can't. So Park Sun decides to try and call Hung-Ju, but that message kept replaying of the number you must dial is, and it keeps repeating as he tries to repeatedly call. And I thought that was a very nice nod to the original, I believe the original English title of the web novel. So it turns into night, and the drones are still on the lookout for her, but Hung-Ju is at the base of the cliff, not moving, but she is there. And then she stirs awake and realizes that it's night, and she tries to sit up, but her side hurts. But she gradually gets to a sitting position against the cliffside. And then we get a replay of what happened from her perception. And we see that our Hung-Ju got pushed. She was pushed by someone with a black sleeve. And y'all, I studied this scene for anyone else wearing black. It will lead you to believe that it's Park Do-jae. And at first I was like, no, it can't be a ride or die guy ride or dying at someone else's whim. It can't be him. It can't. But he was the only person I saw dressed in black, really, that was close to the edge. But it seemed like he was also preoccupied with protecting Park Sun. So I'm not sure if with his other hand, he caught her with a stray, or if not. But if it is him, that will shock the hell out of me. And I hope it's not him. When we saw a kidnapper, he was also wearing a jacket like that, so it seemed like he might have gotten there undetected. And I wouldn't be surprised if he may have alerted some people along the trail that Park Sun was up there to get the crowd excited, so that would be a perfect cover for him to do what he did. Hung-Ju checks her phone that was in her pocket and it's broken. The one that's not, the kidnapper's phone. She tries to call 119, but it doesn't go through. Then 112. Because remember, the kidnapper said that the phone can only call Park Sun, and she remembers that, realizing that that part seems to be true. Park Sun is combing the woods looking for her. He gets a call from Park Do-jae. He confirms with Park Sun that they're still searching and that they've been searching up to 300 meters downstream of the cliff. Then Park Sun gets a call from some reporter, and he tells Park Do-jae that reporters keep calling him and asking if this incident has already been spread to the media. And Park Do-jae says he'll regulate that as much as he can and expand the search radius. Park Sun does ask about the security footage. Park Do-jae says that the police are checking the footage near the trail and summit. Some of their team members and people who have been nearby when it happened are being questioned as witnesses. Park Sun says, if you find anything, call me right away. And he gets another call from another reporter. One of the search guides asks if he was going to answer, and Park Sun is like, nope, because we're all waiting on that call, that one call, and he's waiting for that call too. It's a lucky thing he puts the jacket on Hung-Ju because she needs it as it's getting cold at night. She wonders if they're conducting a search. She doesn't hear anything. Like, shouldn't there be helicopters or drones looking for her? There are, but for some reason, no one checks around the cliff, like fully around the cliff. It's not like she bounced and rolled downhill, but whatever. She looks at the phone wondering if this was how she'll get caught and that this is how she's about to be punished and that she should have confessed earlier, because I'm guessing she's thinking that she was probably going to get arrested and jailed for doing all this, because technically she did make quote-unquote threats to Poxon. And of course, as far as she knows, he's probably thinking that they're both in this together when that's not the case. But she's wondering, like, yeah, I should have confessed this earlier, but it's for the best and that she can finally confess and this can be over. But when she was about to dial, she hesitates, as if she was unsure if he'll pick up. Then she says if she doesn't, it'll be over for her. So she eventually dials and puts on the speakerphone, and she's up there sweating bullets because she keeps wavering between pick up, don't pick up. Because I think she was trying to weigh in her mind that she wasn't sure on what was worse, death or her husband finding out that she was the caller. But of course, he knows, and after he does pick up, he says her name. So when he starts calling her 406, he indirectly asks about Hungy Ju, about how she's doing. And she's up there wondering, like, well, does he think that we're together? Is that the reason why he said my name first? Poxon asks if 406 can hear him because she's not talking. She says, yes. You said to call when there's a corpse. That's why I called. Come get her. Bae is so relieved. His eyes are filling with tears. And tearfully he says, that's good. Thank you for telling me. Where did Hee-ju fall? Just tell me the location. She looks around trying to identify any marker she can. She says she doesn't know. He tells 406 to listen carefully. He put a first aid kit inside Hong Hee-ju's backpack, and at the bottom of the kit, there's a portable flare, and that she can ignite it by striking the top lid. He hopes Hee-ju finds it and uses it when she's able to wake up. She tries reaching for the backpack, but she is in too much pain. He asks if she's scared. She says, me? What's there to be scared of? And he is struggling because I'm sure he heard her crying out when she was trying to reach for it. And he admits that he's scared to death right now. And I can only imagine his person is hurt and he can't find her. Hearing him admit that though, she summons all of her strength to open the backpack for the first aid kit. Poxon is losing it on the phone, calling 406, asking if she's there, demanding her to answer. She responds back with, I can hear you, and he thanks the stars that she's okay. And he says that the temperature has dropped. Do you think Hee-ju is cold? I don't know if she's wearing my jacket. There's water in her backpack too. She can't get dehydrated. She needs to drink water, and he is full on crying now. And oh, my feelings. Ugh, this scene killed me. Oh my god, it was so good. But then a flare goes up into the sky, and he says, you did it. I can see it. She begs him to come quickly, and he says, I'm on my way. Don't hang up. And if you can't, tell Hee-ju not to worry. Tell her I'll be right there. And there's this wonderful full shot of him running through the woods. And of course, he's the only one there, so there's no rescue team around him. But he is running towards his wife. Does he get to her? Well, not in this episode. But we get another little scene. A little rewind back to their first kiss scene. But it's the first time also she talks directly to him when he's out cold. She says, tell me, what are your true feelings? Because when he was about to get hit by that truck, he was about to reveal what his true feelings was for Hong Hee-ju. Didn't quite get that confession, so she's curious on what he was about to say. He looks like he's softly muttering something. She says, I can't hear you. She leans in closer and he mumbles, Hong Hee-ju, I like you. Now she got confirmation that he has feelings for her. And now it's quite interesting with him finding out the truth about her learning how to talk in episode 4 and now rewinding that and watching that episode fully. Now you can kind of say the same thing now about this episode. You can kind of go into that perspective of, oh, so she already knows now that he has feelings for her. And so that kind of changes the aspect of the episode too. But to me also, his feelings aren't just merely of, I like you, like we're dating like you. Because this man was full on crying with worry in that forest about his hurt and lost wife. And that denotes a man fully in love with his wife and worrying for her safety. So this episode to me was one of truth and realization, especially regarding our couple. It's a huge step forward in them coming to an understanding of each other and expectations. They've both gotten some unhidden truths discovered. Park-sun regarding who this mysterious caller has been, and Hong Gi-joo regarding the reason for her marriage to him and the stupid reason why he remained aloof from her. Also, her sister knowing how to talk and also telling her about the reason why I kept you silent is because I wanted someone to suffer with me. But also in this episode, we got some reckoning for Park-sun, who realizes that despite his desire to protect her, he failed his wife twice. Once for how he treated her during their marriage, the other with her fall. Already, life hasn't been fair to her, yet he had a hand in contributing to her suffering, either directly or indirectly. But I love both scenes this episode with them. First one is the earlier phone conversation of him discovering that he had played a huge part of her unhappiness and his desire to course correct. And then, of course, the scene in the forest and how he was unashamedly crying and being truthful to her on the phone, disclosing his fears to her and for her. And how both of them are able to be so candid and open on the phone conversations to each other, but never directly. It's almost just like, it's still in the fantasy realm. I don't want to cross that border yet because that would be too real, but they're heading towards real now because now there's very real implications of what just happened, especially with her falling this way. The other thing I got is, as much as Hong Gi-joo hates The Little Mermaid, there's too many similarities, especially in this episode, to be ignored. I felt that way in the aquarium, where I felt that Hong Gi-na was giving me very big Vanessa vibes at first, but it seems that she's very earnest in wanting to make good on Hong Gi-joo, so I might take back my judgment on her earlier, but it's still just like, there was a lot of things you could have done better, and I still have my eye on you anyway. But even with her trying to make good, girl, that has been 20 years of damage done. It was the epitome of misery-loving company. That was highly unfair to our girl, who did nothing to deserve the treatment she got. She should have been the older sister that she was and learn sign language and wear hearing aids instead of subjecting her little sister to that half-life. She didn't deserve that. But the Little Mermaid signs were also all over the place, especially with Hong Gi-joo leaning over him on the floor at the end, and also on the bed scene too. It felt like that beach scene in The Little Mermaid when Prince Eric imagines seeing Ariel after she rescues him from the shipwreck. I can't be the only one who saw that. And even at the end, during the confrontation scene with Ursula, even Ariel and Eric got separated by her, and so we know eventually they will be reunited soon. So my thoughts for episode 7, he's definitely going to find her, so it will be a matter of time for recovery for our lovers and him showing her love and care, because this cringe I experienced this episode was way too much for me. I was in conversation with Vicky Raves while I was watching this part at how I couldn't deal with the cringe that Park-sun had put on. Even for comic relief, I honestly did not like it in the least. I get that he's new to this love thing, but this didn't cut it for me. It was too much of a swing for me. I thought that how he had acted in the last episode with the whole emoji incident was perfect comedic timing for him for that. I didn't need him to go over the edge like that. The subtlety of him, of just him shielding her eyes on the bus from the sun and him looking at her with all the adoration and love that we already knew he felt. Them going on the hike and being in sync and close with each other. Him searching everywhere in that forest to find her. That's the subtle lean into this loving relationship we needed to see. And I think that's how he'll be going forward. At least I hope so, because God Almighty, I don't ever want to see that in future episodes again. I think there might be more scheming and more holes filled in with our second lead couple that's on the trail for this mystery and the kidnapper and master's next steps. Hong Gi-na, I'm starting to scratch off of my list of being the puppet master, since it seems that she's more focused on wanting to make things right, but still, I'm side-eyeing the hell out of her for the reasons I already stated. Anyway, this recap was way too long, but this was such a great turning point for our boo-boos, apart from the cringe. But it seems that they are on their way to being happy, especially with each other. So I can't wait for some healing to begin in episode 7 in so many ways. So please like and subscribe. Stay a while. Let me know what your impressions have been up to this point. I've given you mine, but hey, it's just a thought.